everyone, I'm Ryan with Omnilucid Media Games, and today I'm going to talk about chieftains and the history behind them. I should start with the difference between a chieftain and a jarl is really not much. Technically they were the same thing. I believe, if I remember right, that jarl actually means chieftain in certain old Norse languages. However, there was a slight difference in the way that they were talked about that seems to get lost in translation a little bit here and there. So the difference is that a jarl is typically somebody that's working within the state or working as part of the Viking government or Norse government, I should say. So there would be a king, and then underneath the king he would have his jarls that would all be spread out, pretty much like governors across his land and his area. The difference between that are chieftains would be, they could go by chieftain, but typically a chieftain would be somebody that was working outside of the government. One of the things with Viking culture was that anybody, if they didn't agree with the way that things were being run by their jarl or their king, and they disagreed with it, they were always able to leave. Now, a lot of them wouldn't do this because if they did leave, they would basically go into exile and they would be cut off from any help from the jarl, so they wouldn't have any extra help coming in. Some Vikings did go off and become chieftains on their own, typically, like I said, because they didn't agree with the way that things were being run. This didn't happen all that often because typically most jarls knew well enough that they should be ruling and doing a good job, that they shouldn't be taking more than they should take. What their job would be providing for their people. So they would offer the security, they would collect basically taxes from everyone, or from the Viking raids they would take their fair share, but everything would be put basically back to the community. The jarl would be the one that would give out the lands in the area to farmers or anyone else in the area. It would also be the one taking care of basically what would be their city guard, or that local town's soldiers and security and everything there. They would also be the ones that would be in charge of commissioning to have more longships made, so they would be the ones commissioning to have the Drakkar made. They would also be the ones that would commission having more longhouses built, and basically just upkeep of the community. Most jarls, they would do their job just fine. They typically would be more wealthy because they were taking these taxes in, and they would get a larger portion of the spoils. However, at the same time, jarls were also expected to lead any of their Viking raids or any wars that might be going on. They should be supporting any of their clansmen that would be getting attacked from neighboring communities. In return, then all the Norsemen in the area would also lend their hand in the jarls' conflicts that they may be getting into. Say this jarl is taking too much money, he's not going on the raids, he's not looking out for his people. If he wasn't overthrown, which was very likely as well, then anyone was allowed to just leave and basically put themselves in exile and just go away from that community. Now, more times than not, they would probably go off and find another community to join so that they could still have that security. If it was a particularly experienced warrior or Viking that did go on lots of raids and was very skilled in combat, had a lot of followers, and people would go with him, if he was a great leader, he may go off and start his own clan and or community. And in that case, then he would become the chieftain. He would draw more followers to him, and they would basically go off and raid and start getting the money and farming their lands and doing whatever they needed to start their new community. They would have to find an area outside of the lands that their former community was at. Preferably they'd be trying to find somewhere that nobody else was laying claim to. However, back in the days, it was pretty easy to just find open area that, clearly there just weren't people all over the space. Obviously somebody at some point would say, hey, that's my land, but at that point, hopefully they would be able to, you know, build it up into their own town, and be able to claim and say, hey, no, this is our land, we're farming it, and if it came down to a fight, then protect it. That's kind of the differences between a chieftain and a jarl. Now, chieftains, like I said, they were often great warriors. Even as a chieftain, they take on basically the same responsibilities as what the jarls would be, which is how, like I said before, that they were typically they're basically the same thing. So they would be better equipped. However, they would also be expected to help equip their men. You know, you wouldn't have him sending, if he could afford it at least, he's not going to send his men into battle, you know, with sticks and, you know, and stones and whatever, and not giving them proper equipment. Again, if they can afford it, they would have full armor, whether it be leather. Typically they would already have chainmail. Vikings didn't really wear plate armor, although it was around, it just wasn't something that they could move in very well. If they did, it would typically be in small portions. They wouldn't have a full suit like an English knight, but you know, they may have a chest piece. Typically they would have chainmail and leather type armor, and the chieftain would usually have pretty much the best of that, besides maybe if he starts bringing in even more experienced warriors and them just getting their own spoils of war. The chieftain would also be somebody that was very skilled at sailing. They would be not only the leader in combat on the ground, but they would also be a ship's captain, so they would also be the one in charge of that. Chieftains were very, very intelligent, very good leaders, and very fierce warriors. So that's why you will see in our game Drakkar, you will see just how deadly chieftains can actually be, which I will go over in the next video, where I will describe the chieftain game piece. Even though they're the leader and you are trying to take out the other team's chieftain, they are quite a force to be reckoned with themselves as well, and they can definitely hold their own. Not the same as in chess, where you just want to keep that king protected. In Drakkar, you can definitely use the chieftain to, you know, turn the tide and definitely win the battle for you. That's all for this one. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, next one I will be talking about the piece itself, and I hope to see you guys soon. Once again, my name is Ryan Nieders. This is Omni Lucid Media Games. We're talking about our new game that's going to be coming out by the end of the year called Drakkar. Go ahead and hit the like, subscribe button on this video. Really appreciate it. You can also check us out on the Facebook page, Omni Lucid Media Games, or omnilucidmediagames.com. Where we have a small website that we are working on. It's very baby format right now, but we will continue to update that as we get further along. So hope to see you guys soon. Bye.